My name is Anselmo Sandoval. I graduated St. Joe's class of 2016. I currently work at Stanford University, and my position there is Benefits Service Specialist. In my current role, I'm a seasoned practitioner in benefits administration related to Stanford Employee Benefits Program, which includes health, life, and retirement savings. I am part of a team that helps provide support to over 21,000 faculty, staff, and retirees. I work closely with third-party vendors regarding case management, process and enrollment elections, and responding to questions regarding to our benefits program. In a day-to-day tasks, we interact with employees through phone call mostly. People call in, we help assist them with any questions they have. Most of the questions that we see is, hey, what's the difference of an HMO versus a PPO? We also have a lot of people, Stanford hires a lot of people outside the country. So this is the first time experiencing the American healthcare system. So we have to sort of explain to them the ins and outs. A lot of people are surprised when they see like, hey, our eyes covered different than teeth? And the answer is yes, you need to have separate eye insurance and vision insurance. So we just basically provide support throughout the entire employee life cycle, from like new hires, people who just got their offer letter at Stanford and they're super excited, want to learn a little bit more about their benefits, to people who've been here for 20 years and they say, hey, I still have some questions regarding my benefits. In HR entry path, I would say there's no typical entry path just because HR is just so broad as an industry. You have, talent acquisition, you have compensation, payroll, diversity and inclusion, employee relations, and each, sort of like little like career within that industry is all very unique in itself. And there's, different ways to enter into that path. I mean, for me personally, I started off as a recruiter with a company called Silicon Valley Staffing Solutions. For them, I entered through recruiting, help, fill job positions, work with managers to fill, openings, talk to them, describing them. And from there, I went to administrative work, a little bit more data entry. And then from there, I jumped to a sort of specialist slash HR generalist, working a little bit more with employee relations, hiring, firing, disciplinary actions, conflict resolution. Um, there is no sort of one standard role. I mean, you can start off in one area of HR and be like, hey, I've worked in benefits for a little bit. I actually want to do talent acquisition more, and you're able to make that transition as well. Yeah, I'm being successful in my current position, and I want to say just in HR overall, is just working well in a fast-paced, high-volume environment. You do have to possess strong problem-solving skills, having high emotional intelligence, and communicating complex matters in a clear and a friendly manner. And I think for me, it really developed in St. Joe's when I was taking sort of like towards my later years, my capstone courses, because it really did help me sort of in terms of data mining, gathering a lot of information. When you're in a professional setting, you have to do a lot of presentations and you talk to, upper management. If you want to pitch ideas, you have to show them the data or show me the proof, as they sort of say. You sort of had to say, hey, I think sort of this course of action, or I think, this implementation of this strategy isn't working well, or it is working well because of this, or because we don't have this. And you do definitely need to talk with other managers and sort of see and say, hey, I think that this data is doing great. I don't think this data is doing not so great. And speaking of St. Joe's, it definitely do let me help with a lot of research. For business, I took a lot of business courses, and it was about researching, me being in the library for very long hours. There were a couple of sleepless nights in the library, just, gathering data for presentations, or for courses that I was going to take. As a, HR professional, you do have to be very meticulous in terms of, keeping a track of what's happening on, whether it be in an HRIS system or just a Google spreadsheet, and tracking down and then presenting that to upper management. Especially St. Joe's being anything like customer facing, For me personally, when I think sort of the activities that I did that sort of helped me improve my skills in HR, was I was a tour guide. Back then it's called Hawkos. I don't know if it's still called now. But I mean, being a tour guide sort of really helped me be customer facing and, talking to families coming in, to students, walking around St. Joe's, engaging them, asking questions. I also worked at the Office of Residence Life as an RA. So for that one, it helped really did improve my skills in terms of report writing, incident report writing, what happened, community building as well. As an RA, I had to, come up with ideas that, or activities that was sort of help bring my floor together. And I think that sort of also sort of was my introduction to community building activity skills here in HR. I also worked at the Office of Admissions and Work Studies, calling a lot of people. They were interested in St. Joe's, cold calling, and that really sort of helped me connect or just help my customer experience skills. I also did a lot of, in the activities fair. I know every year St. Joe's has one at the beginning of the year. I went in there and I just basically signed up for as many activities that I thought were great. I think probably my most memorable one that I did was called Back on My Feet. It's where, we woke like every Saturday, every weekend, we ran with people who were struggling with housing assistance or housing stability. And it really did help me with connect or just build my interpersonal skills, just talking with other people and just going on a long run. Sort of the importance of a business card. A lot of times, when you go to these networking events, we have, resumes, it's a 2, 3 page document, it can be like, and you hand it over to a lot of people. You go to networking events and sometimes they just have stacks of resumes. And it's also really important, just a small business card. It isn't as big. And yeah, a person is able to have, that meaningful conversation with you. You give them the business card, they put it in their wallet, they might forget about it, but then they open it back up and they're like, hey, I really had this meaningful conversation with this person regarding, so and so, regarding their profession, regarding the career goals. I really like this person. I'm gonna go out and connect with them. And it's really nice having a business card because you can connect at any social event. Like if you're talking with someone at a networking event or you're just connecting with just any professional in general, and you're like, hey, I want to, this is a really great conversation that we're having. I want to continue it, or I want to, be part of your network. Hey, here's my business card. It really does help solidify sort of your networking right in the beginning. I think for HR, especially, you do have to play to a lot of your strengths. I currently live here in the Silicon Valley. This area in California is highly competitive, and it took time to, be hired by a well-known company. But I think, especially for me, I am bilingual, and language was a very huge plus out here in the Bay Area compared to the East Coast. In the East Coast, it was competitive as well, but what gave me that extra edge here being in California was that I also speak Spanish. So a lot of employers were like, hey, you're bilingual. That's a huge plus because we do have a lot of our employees right now who are Spanish speaking. So whenever you're looking at professions, definitely look into markets or area where sort of all of your talents or skills are a plus. For me, I had a little bit harder time in the East Coast, but out here in California, I had a better competitive edge. It's really more about being able to create a work environment in which everyone feels comfortable, regardless of their culture or their race. A lot of times, people, working in the workplace, they sometimes feel uncomfortable, sort of, expressing their culture. Here at Stanford, we had recently had a huge Diwali celebration. A lot of people who celebrated Diwali had the opportunity to share with coworkers. And diversity is really allowing your coworkers to not only express their cultural identity, but share with coworkers as well in a positive and community building way. For a lot of people who didn't know what Diwali is, they were able to sort of learning a little bit more about the celebration, why it was important, and what it meant to, their own coworker in their culture. I think for, here at Stanford, we are very, very huge on diversity and inclusion. As a matter of fact, we have our own separate department with, whole team specially dedicated in diversity and inclusion, and it's definitely tying or promoting everyone's cultural heritage because Stanford is worldwide. We have professors or faculty and staff in almost every single country. We have offices. Recently Stanford, they had grant approval to build a laboratory in Japan. So, we working a lot, Stanford works closely a lot with other countries and other international teams and being very inclusive within those interactions or within those community building, because sometimes at Stanford, you might be having team members who are working in different countries, who are speak different languages. So it's extremely important to be able to create an environment where everyone feels, welcome and included. Typically for human resources, the well-known one is the Society of Human Resource Management, or SHRM for short. They're the ones that typically most employers will use. They do have a lot of cool free, they do have some free stuff, some like cases. They do case studies a lot in terms of like, hey, discrimination in the workplace, what does that mean? Or hey, they have like pregnancy discrimination. I have a lot of like really cool like case studies in terms of employment law. If you want to have their extra seminars, or if you want to internet interact with, or webinars, it does cost a little bit more. But sometimes employers are willing to pay for that. I know my previous employer, they paid for my SHRM certification. So allowed me to go to classes in terms of data, sort of benefits, will help sort of improve my knowledge in human resource. What I wish someone would have told me, in St. Joe's, sometimes I was a lot of, very focused within my own course or degree. Like, hey, I want to take a lot of business classes. I want to graduate. I want to take all my capstone courses, but I really wish someone would have kind of told me like, hey, take some classes that are not within business, or take some classes that are not within your major. Because I think, for me, I graduated with the business degree, but eventually I transitioned over to human resource. And I did take some classes in St. Joe's in terms that were like leadership and very HR, like managing human capital courses, which sort of like planted the seed in HR for me. Like, oh, okay, my major is business, but that doesn't mean necessarily I have to work within my field when I graduate. There are other courses, or there's other fields over there that I can use my skills, business skills into them, and grow within it as well. So my advice would be definitely, take courses outside of your major. You might be surprised. You might be like, hey, I actually really like this course, or I really like this subject matter a lot.